Welcome to Candid Catholic Convos, a program brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Our mission is to humanize the church and help you to grow in your faith, love, and understanding. I'm your host, Rachel Trochet, a cradle Catholic who's only human and struggled with faith on more than one occasion. Each week, you'll hear engaging, down-to-earth interviews and actionable strategies you can implement into your life with ease to help you grow closer to God. If you're ready to open your heart and step fully into the person God created you to be, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Candid Catholic Convos. Who else remembers the old Looney Tunes cartoons where one of the characters gets hit in the head with a frying pan, an anvil, a refrigerator, and suddenly has a wild idea? Just me? Sometimes those crazy ideas worked, other times they failed miserably, but every idea, no matter how crazy, was worth trying, even if it was only for comedic purposes. Not only was it hilarious, but it also served as a reminder growing up that sometimes God isn't subtle. You just have to be paying attention. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to one of our transitional deacons, soon to be ordained a priest in just a couple weeks, Deacon Clark Stiteler, about his frying pan moment that led him to the priesthood. Deacon Stiteler, welcome to Candid Catholic Convos. I'm excited to have you. I'm super excited about your upcoming ordination. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
So, as an introduction to those in the diocese who might not have gotten to interact with you yet, tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, your parish, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see. My home parish is St. Pat's in Carlisle, and that's where I was at most recently before I entered in the seminary. But growing up, I grew up in Camp Hill, and so my parish growing up was Good Shepherd. And so went to Good Shepherd School, Trinity High School, graduated in 2003. That's when I graduated there. And then after that, I went to LaSalle University out in Philadelphia. Yeah, so it was great growing up. My parents were awesome. Very blessed childhood growing up. I had two older brothers, and they're still kind of pretty local. We're all within about like a 2-hour drive or so. And it was real cool as far as like growing up. I played like a lot of team sports, right? And so kind of family was like a team effort, helping each other out. And as far as I've gone, like in the seminary, journey and my discernment call, I've really seen the church as almost like that aspect of like team sports, right? We each have our unique role. We're each kind of helping each other out and kind of encouraging each other. And the goal is to get everyone to heaven. So that's kind of how I see it. That's kind of how I think. I like the idea of the team effort kind of thing. So
that's such a good analogy for that. It's like it's a everybody participates in a team sports, even if you're sitting in the stand.
Yeah,
like you get to cheer everybody on.
That's right.
That's so funny that you and I have probably crossed paths at least once in our lives because I grew up and I went to St. Pat's. The school.
Okay.
And then I graduated from Cumberland Valley in 2004 and went to Temple University.
Oh, no way.
So at some point we probably 6 degrees of separation. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. My mom and dad went to Temple. So
Did they really?
There.
Oh, my goodness. I loved it there. We never walked past a certain spot on Broad Street, but otherwise it was a great experience.
Yeah, no way. Cool. Very cool.
So let's talk about your childhood. You mentioned that your family was pretty tight and you guys collaborated on getting everybody to team sports, which I'm a mom of 3, so I know that struggle of trying to figure out like when are we going to eat dinner? We eat dinner at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or at 9 o'clock at night, trying to get everybody around.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about what it was like growing up.
Oh, yeah. Growing up was awesome. Like I said, it was a great childhood, and it was almost like it was such a great gift that I got that I kind of thought that's how my path would have been in my life. Obviously, that looks a little different. But, yeah, grew up doing team sports, kind of played with some of the kids in the neighborhood a lot. Had a good, core of, really, kind of close friends growing up in grade school and then in high school. And it's really awesome because we still are able to, keep in touch with each other. And so we're all kind of doing our different things, and that's been really awesome. Yeah, and then as far as kind of other stuff growing up, nothing too kind of like out of the ordinary or anything like kind of too wild. Just some things that kind of come to mind now as far as, those close family things. I know there were a couple like non-negotiables. So my grandma and grandpa, they grew up, they lived in Carlisle, and that's where my dad was raised at. And one of the non-negotiables was to go visit grandma and grandpa every Sunday. And so absolutely super grateful for that. And my mom's parents, they lived out in Philadelphia, and then the Philadelphia area. So we tried to go there at least like once a month. Mm-hmm. But then you had the big like holidays, so like Christmas and stuff, Easter, obviously. And we tried to get together during the summer times too. So I had like a lot of like cousins too and everything. So aunts, uncles, we all tried to get together. It was always a fun time to kind of like be together and just hang out, Nothing like too formal, just being together was the big thing.
Yeah. I love that. Very like classic nostalgic childhood. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about like, did you participate in any parish activities, or did you altar serve? Did you do anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. I was an altar server at a Good Shepherd. So I guess whenever you're able to start is when I started, and that went through senior year of high school.
Nice.
I kind of did that. Played CYO basketball. That was an awesome time. We weren't the best. You should check the records, but we had fun time playing and practicing and stuff. And again, that's the idea of kind of like the team effort. And two, despite the fact that, we didn't necessarily always win that many games, that's not necessarily, kind of the goal. The goal was to kind of like learn about adversity, learn how to work with each other as far as, coordinating and practicing and kind of that discipline. So,
yeah.
So winning isn't necessarily everything. It's fun, but just kind of being able to kind of have that team effort type thing.
Exactly. So, you learn more about the journey that it took to get there than you do from the actual winning.
And you kind of learn about yourself too.
Yeah.
Because when you personally have to deal with adversity, I mean, life is not, as they say, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Stuff's going to happen. And kind of growing up, I didn't realize that much that my faith could help inform me with those things that you go through. So I didn't realize that till later in life. Praise God that the Lord was able to open my eyes to his the truth, beauty, and goodness of the faith that he wants everyone to know about.
Yeah. That's so important. Yeah. And it's... I love that you mentioned that it's something that you didn't quite come to till later, because like as kids we always think about like the here and now, like how is this best going to serve me today? Mm-hmm. Whereas as adults we have this ability to kind of see farther down the road and like okay, how like your past decisions or your past experiences inform, and then coupled with faith informs how you push forward or what doors God's going to open for you. Yeah, you're right about that for sure. So when I was growing up, podcasting was not on my bingo card of what I wanted to be. I was going to be Steven Spielberg, and I was going to be making all kinds of movies. And then I think at one point I wanted to be a photographer for National Geographic and take pictures of lightning. Was being a priest on your bingo card growing up?
No, it wasn't. It was definitely not on my radar at all. Not that I mean, maybe I thought about it, but it wasn't anything that I can kind of recall right now or anything. And I remember, I think it was a couple weeks ago, Bishop had confirmation masses down at St. Joe's in York, which is where my deacon assignment's at. And he said it like perfectly. He's like, our God is a God full of surprises.
Yes.
And this was a very big surprise, very unexpected. But kind of looking back on it, it's been awesome, And so it's the whole idea, again, I'm sure I heard it like when I was growing up, but it's become more real and I kind of understood it more that like God has a special, unique plan like for each person. And it makes sense because each person is so unique, irrepeatable, like that, beautiful stuff like that. And I started learning that during like my discernment. And the plan that God has for everyone, it's like if God is loving, and he is, God is love, and he wants people to be happy, it makes sense that the plan he has for each person is for their happiness. And so when I kind of got that, and again, it sounds kind of simple, but again, God is like simple, like in a good way, simple, true. And when you get that, I was like, wow, this is this is something else. So it took me about 33 years to kind of get that, but I'm glad that the Lord he drew me in His goodness and kindness, and especially His mercy, kind of got me back. So I'm forever grateful for that, and that's something that I want to let people know about and kind of share, not only to people of the diocese, but people that I encounter kind of like every day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impactful mission to be able to carry that and say, like, everybody that I speak to, I want to be able to show that, you know, that we're not perfect and we're not without our own struggles, but that God is with us and present and working through us, and it shows when we interact with other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you might have heard the call when you were a kid.
Sure.
Is there any kind of like specific instance where God just kind of like hit you over the head with a frying pan and was like, this is what I want you to do? Or was it more subtle, kind of building up to it? Like, how would you describe hearing the call?
Yeah, so that awesome question. So it's actually a combination of both of those. So the first thing was the frying pan that I got. Kind of a little background to how I got to that point. Kind of like many people of my age in that time, after high school, I did fall away from the faith for a little bit. I was not practicing, wasn't going to Mass on a consistent basis. And it wasn't that I, didn't believe in God anymore. It was just I got distracted, indifferent, just didn't seem relevant to my life, like kind of that stuff. And that's something I still like kind of reflect on today. Like, Lord, like why wasn't I seeing what I see now? And I always think about it's not meant to be a place of discouragement or anything. That's a place that God works in everyone's life in such a unique way. And so that's something that I went through to see the beauty of the faith now. And for anyone like listening to this, whether like I went to like grade school with y'all or went to high school with y'all and you might be in that same boat still, I mean, like, please, like, come back, give the faith a second chance. Like, come back home. That's what the Lord wants, like, so very much. And so the big turning point for me was going back to Mass, but confession. The sacrament of penance was an absolute game changer for me. So I was working at the time, and I had recently moved back to Carlisle. And again, I kind of felt like drawn to go back to Mass. I don't know exactly why, but I just kind of maybe felt like something was missing. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to Mass, give that a try again. And I remember thinking, again, because I was in Carlisle, I was like, well, if it was good enough for Grandma, it's good enough for me. Because she used to go to daily Mass there and everything, and which is cool. And so, yeah, I go back to Mass for a couple weeks. I was like, oh, this is great. I kind of maybe probably more mature. The gospel, kind of made a little more sense to things that was going on in my own life. And so I could kind of apply it to that. But then after a couple weeks, I was like, I think I need to go back to Sacrament of Penance, go reconciliation. And it took me a couple weeks to build up the courage to do that, because it wasn't easy, because I was being knucklehead for about like 10 to 12 years. And so I make it back to confession, and I will never forget what the priest said when I was in there. So kind of like start up, do the sign of the cross. And I said, and I forgot how long it's been. And so I was like, is it okay if we like kind of bracket how long it's been, or like estimate? He chuckles, very similar to that. I chuckle. He's like, yeah, we can do that. That's quite all right. And I was like, I think it's been about 10 to 12 years. It could very well be 14 years, but I'm not sure. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, welcome back, brother. And at that point, I knew that was Christ. That was Jesus welcoming me back to the sacrament. For all the knucklehead stuff that I was doing during those past years. And I kind of understood, again, it's something that, I learned when I was younger what a sacrament is. But right there, I knew that was a part. That was an encounter that I had with Jesus, and He forgiving me of all my sins. And leaving that confessional I'd never felt it just so light. You kind of feel like you're floating a little bit, And so this was before the Saturday night Mass. And so I was like, I might as well stick around for Mass. And so I'm praying my penance in the pews, and all of a sudden, like, the thought of, like, priesthood was on my mind and, like, in my heart, like, out of nowhere. It was, like, very clear, but just that. And I was like, this is strange. I was like, what's going on? And, like, I'm kind of a goof, so I kind of, like, look behind me. I'm like, no, I'm the only one sitting here, and there's no one saying anything. And during that Mass, I never really paid that much attention to what was going on, to the beauty of the Mass, to exactly what the priest's role was in that. And I was just, like, kind of, like, really locked in. And again, it wasn't anything that I was doing. This was a gift that I was given by the Lord, like coming back to that sacrament, being drawn back to Mass. That wasn't anything I did. It was a gift of the Lord drawing me back there with his grace. And yeah, so that was kind of the big moment where that was kind of placed on my mind. And over the next 2 weeks, even when I was at work, I was still thinking about this. Like, it's like I couldn't shake it. It was strange. It was like a cool thing, but as far as where I was at in my life, I'm like, this timing is odd, because I had my own place. I had a job that I really loved, and, like, things were kind of working out the way kind of I thought they would. And then this happened. I remember I talked to a priest. He was unbelievably patient. He was great. And when I told him my story, he was like, wow, that's good. He goes, keep on doing what you're doing. Let's talk again in 2 months. And he says, there's 2 things, though, that you might find helpful. He said, one, he's like, there's an adoration chapel here. He goes, if you have a chance, kind of go in there, pray before the Lord. And I kind of didn't. I remember going to adoration when I was little. I was like, I don't know what to do. He's like, just go. Don't worry about anything. Just sit with our Lord and pray. And as far as prayer being a conversation with God. So all those, like, kind of confusions, the timing things, I ended up kind of bringing that to the Lord. And going to the adoration chapel, like, after work, just for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So that was kind of like a gradual thing, because I didn't have, like, a solid, like, prayer life at that point. So that's something I was building up. And then he gave me a book. And I remember, as he handed it to me, like, I read the bottom, I was like, that's strange. I don't know how this would be helpful. But it was a story about a priest being locked up in a Soviet labor camp for about 23 years in the Soviet Union. And it was a story of Father Walter Chiswick. And so it turns out he's on the road to sainthood, which is awesome. But it's a story about divine providence, meaning God's plan for each person's life, kind of trusting God, and the fact that whether we realize it or not, that God is in our life and kind of working with us. And that really, like, hit my heart when I was reading through that, because a lot of it was stuff that I was going through, and it was an absolutely beautiful thing. And so then we get to the gradual part. That was the frying pan. Part 2 is the gradual part over the next 2 years. I'm kind of a deliberate, like, type person. Again, I don't necessarily like to rush into things. But during those 2 years, I became more involved at the parish. There was, like, a parish weekend retreat that I went on. Started going to the men's group on Saturday morning, which was huge, like, helpful. Knowing that, again, it's the team effort. I wasn't just on an island struggling with things that I did or other people. Like, that the faith is real, and that it can kind of, like, help you and everything. Because that's what the Lord desires, everyone's happiness. And, yeah, helping out at the local, like, food bank, the overnight shelter, things like I never even would have thought of kind of doing. And I think it was kind of stretching my heart and the generosity to see, just being with people and helping them out kind of in their struggles. And the other one thing, too, that I was, at the time, I was working as an assistant district attorney down in Chambersburg. So I was a criminal prosecutor. At that same time, when I was discerning, I was offered a job at the public defender's office. So the public defender, those are the attorneys that represent folks that get charged with crimes that either are in jail or can't afford an attorney. And so I worked in that office for about like 8 or 9 months. And I think that is a place that that the Lord really wanted me to be at that time, because I became so much more empathetic, more sympathetic to what people go through on an everyday basis. And it was something that really kind of opened my eyes. And then one last thing about the gradualness. I know I'm talking a lot.
No, that's fine.
One thing about the gradualness is that every time that I prayed before the Blessed Sacrament and saying, like, Lord, I just don't know. There are so many better, like, men that could do this. Like, kind of like, why me? Like, someone else. And there was just this sense of, like, kind of peace. When I had a sense of that I am unworthy to live up to this call, Lord's like, don't worry about it. Like, I will help you out in this. And boy, oh boy, do I take him up on that. Because I got to the point where I'm like, all right, Lord, this is your idea. I trust you. I absolutely love you. You know me better than I know myself. You know I'm going to be asking for help every morning or for anything like kind of going through. And he's, not surprisingly, he's lived up to his end of the bargain. And there was one thing, too, when I was discerning, and it kind of put me a little over the top, was I think it was for the Feast of the Annunciation. And I was out of town, and this one priest said in his homily, he said, God is not going to send you out on a mission and then abandon you. And I was sitting there, I was like, huh. Again, it was the simple things that were very helpful. And so after a period of, like, praying with Scripture and stuff, and I have to also, too, talk about Our Lady. My devotion to Our Lady was absolutely huge. She is an amazing, awesome mother who's always there to kind of help out. And so those are things that kind of led up. And again, it was gradual. It wasn't like, like priesthood right there. It was, I think I should talk to my pastor. I think, okay, maybe I should, kind of do something else. Then you get the application. Then you're like, okay, I think I'm called to seminary at least to give it a try. So it's kind of like a gradual, like, type thing as far as that was. It wasn't just like, this is definitely it, So
yeah,
hopefully that makes a little bit of sense.
It absolutely does, because I'm thinking about my own life as you're talking about this, because like I can't even go spontaneously go shopping. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to drop however much money on a pair of pants or a shirt or an outfit unless I am like totally sure. So hearing you say that, like, you're the type of person who like needs to know where all the pieces are, it's like refreshing, because I'm the same type of person. And it's so funny that you mentioned that confession was one of those like frying pan over the head moments, because when I was talking to Deacon St. Dennis, he said the same thing. And there's at least 2 instances in my life where it was the same thing. Like, for some reason I felt drawn back to confession, and then it was just like a light bulb moment. And to know that sacrament, that we have access to that sacrament, and that is that powerful, is something that we should take advantage of more often. And to let people know about it. Like, God's mercy and his love for everyone is incredible. Absolutely.
It's incredible,
And just going to confession just can kind of open any kind of door. For me, it was motherhood, because the first time I went back to confession, I don't know why I keep hitting this poor microphone, but we were struggling with infertility, and I was like so mad at God. And I remember going to confession because I didn't know how else to get in touch with him, even though, like, I know I could have prayed, but I just felt so distant from him that I went to confession, and I'm like yelling at this poor priest about how I felt like I was sinning because I was so angry with God. And he looks at me, like you said, like the thing you'll never forget, the one I got was, trust me, God can take it, and he's gonna reward you for it. And sure enough, now I have 3 boys, and I had them back to back to back. That was God being like, here you go.
Beautiful.
So it was one of those moments where it's like, if we can just stop talking and let God do his thing and just trust him, that everything is going to work out in the end. That's just, I love hearing you say that. So let's talk about some doubts and concerns, because like, when I think of seminary or entering religious life, like, I am not a perfect person. Like, none of us are. But when you think of somebody who's in seminary or religious life, you almost like hold them up on this pedestal of holiness. So what were some doubts or concerns that you had in the discernment process, like before you got to, or even in seminary, like once you were there?
Yeah, one of them was that very thing. I didn't think I was good enough. I thought there were much better people out there. I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? I don't get it. So I did have that kind of concern, but again, that concern was kind of like alleviated through prayer and everything, and like kind of reading scripture, because a lot of the scripture, when folks in the Bible get called, they have similar reactions. Like Moses, he had a similar reaction. He's like, nah, I don't think I can do this. Like, ask someone else. And so there's a couple other instances like that. Another one I had, I thought I was a little too old. So this is like a second calling for me in my life. I kind of alluded to earlier, kind of like my work career. And so I was working for about 7.5 years. Might have been up around 8 years. And I was like, I'm 32 or whenever it was. I was like, I kind of thought that you always had to be like younger for it. And then that was, a little bit old. And one of the awesome things is that, so I go to Mount St. Mary's Seminary down in Emmitsburg. So Emmitsburg is about like a 15-minute drive south of Gettysburg. And as I was driving down there, and it was the first day, and you're like kind of meeting everyone. It was a Sunday night. And the first couple guys I meet down there have very similar stories that I do. They're kind of older. They had like kind of a calling and everything. It was one of those deals where I was like, oh, I see what you're doing, Lord. So he'll always put people in your life that he may be trying to speak through, or that he's trying to give you like a consolation. And so that's one thing I kind of started learning too.
We've unfortunately run out of time, but if you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, you can listen to us anytime on Spotify under Candid Catholic Convos, or you can download this episode from our website at hbgdiocese.org. Thank you so much for listening. Our goal at the Diocese of Harrisburg is to walk with you on your faith journey. So if this episode resonated with you in any way, the easiest way to show your appreciation is by sharing this program with your network, or by leaving a review on your listening platform. You can also support us financially by making a donation online at hbgdiocese.org/DAC and clicking the Make a Donation button. Thanks again, and we'll see you at church on Sunday.